historical place, which used to be a garage, is one of the many workshops now working full-time on war production. However small a workshop may be, there is some vital job which it can be equipped to do. The boy at this lathe used to repair bicycles. Now he's helping to make adjusting plugs for the shock absorbers of Valentine tanks. This adjusting plug passes through 3 separate factories before it reaches the main assembly line. And it's a good example of the way the contribution of many factories dovetails to produce the finished tank.
The plugs come to us in the rough, just as they left the foundry. First of all, they're machined on a lathe. This does 3 separate operations: chamfering, recessing and facing inside of flange, and forming the outside diameter. Before the plugs go to the next machine, the work is checked with the snap gauge. The next job is threading the surface that has just been formed on the lathe. We're only making a few small tank parts here, but they've got to fit other parts made in other shops. So once again the work is inspected, and this time by a thread gauge in the inspection shop. Well, that's completed the machining of the adjusting plug, and that's the last we see of it.
In our factory before the war, we were making shock absorbers for tanks as part of our production, but now we're doing nothing else. The cylinder reaches us as rough tubing, and it goes through several processes in our machine shop. The first of these is broaching the bore. Circular cutters are pulled through the center of the tube to size and finish the bore. It takes a load of 30 tons. That's about equal to the weight of 2 complete Valentines to pull this brooch through the tube. Then the outside is turned on a lathe to clean up the rough surface and reduce the cylinder to something near the right diameter. The grinding machine next door brings the cylinder down to the exact size and puts a final finish on it. A thread is now cut on one end of the cylinder. A circular nut will be fitted here at a later stage. Besides the operations we have seen, the cylinder is given a hard metal deposit to withstand wear and an anti-rust protective plating to withstand weather. You see, these cylinders have got to be as tough as we can make them. Before the cylinder goes to the assembly shop, it has to pass a strict inspection. Only a tolerance of 1 thou on the diameters is allowed. In the assembly shop, the final shock absorber unit is built up from the 60-odd components. Here is the adjusting plug which we got from the small workshop. The filler tube is being screwed into it. Now oil is pumped through it to test the valve already in the tube. The plug is then screwed into the cylinder end cap, and the sub-assembly is complete. It forms a cap for retaining the fluid in the main cylinder. This unit works on the hydraulic principle. At other benches, more sub-assemblies are going on. Here's the piston rod assembly. The 20-odd parts are made separately, but they've all got to fit at this stage. Then the piston is put into the cylinder. Next, the fluid is poured in. When the valves are correctly adjusted, the cap with the original adjusting plug is screwed on the end of the shock absorber, and our job here is finished.
This is where the final assembly is done. We get the shock absorbers along with many other components and turn out Valentines. But first of all, the shock absorber has to be built into the suspension unit. Here are some of the different parts of the suspension unit. Springs, bell housings, stub axles, all now brought together for their final assembly. The shock absorber is placed in the center of the spring. This is then compressed and a nut fitted. This gives us our initial load. Between them, the shock absorber and the spring take the strain of any bumps. That's another part of the job completed. Now the two forks which will hold the wheel axles are assembled with the shock absorber unit. One end of the spring is housed on the primary fork, which carries a large wheel, and the other end is attached to the secondary fork, which will carry two smaller wheels. In an adjoining shop, the bracket is being riveted. The bracket is fitted to the suspension unit, and the whole assembly is then ready for fitting to the hull of the tank. It comes to the main assembly line. The hull of the tank, two armor-plated sides and flooring has already been built. Now the four separate suspension units, each to carry 3 wheels, are fitted. At the same time, other jobs are going on. Here come the rear louvers, bulletproof coverings to protect the engine and transmission. The louver is full of baffles and angles to allow air into the engine, but to keep bits of bullets out. Now the wheels are added and the suspension unit is complete. Work goes on inside and outside. A dozen jobs are done at once. Each new part that is added is itself an assembly of many other parts. Now the tank is rolled forward onto its tracks, its own permanent way. The gun turret is lowered into its housing. It is power-driven to give the gunner all-round and accurate fire. But the gunner can't do his job properly unless the suspension unit is doing its job, keeping the gun platform steady when the tank is moving. Finally, oil is pumped in. And now the time has come for the test driver to take over. Under its own power, the Valentine moves out of the factory for its trials.
The final item has been added to our Valentine, the guns. It's off for delivery now. On whatever front it first sees battle, it's got the right stuff and the right workmanship in it to stand up to the job it's got to do, and to give a little better than it gets.